Well, it's been a second since I've done one of these. Yeah, I know that I had sworn off making worst lists for good quite some time ago, and for the most part, that still stands. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I'm not really about the negativity here. We have enough of that in our own day-to-day lives as is. With that said, I've been really wanting to make something quick and easy that people might actually watch, and also that isn't 2+ hours long, so here we are. Now, I want to make it clear that this isn't necessarily my return to worst lists. There are quite a few other music YouTubers out there tackling the stinkiest the pop world has to offer and doing so quite entertainingly. I'm just going to treat this as a one-off for now. And in the meantime, take on a year considered one of the very best.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you something. I think you'll understand.
Yeah, much has been said already about 1964 and its importance in pop culture's forward momentum. The monumental shifts brought on by both the international imports as well as all the new and budding bands and artists at home. 1963 may have planted these seeds with the popularity surge of girl groups, soul performers, and folk acts, but 64 is where these seeds really start to blossom into something truly special. We will get to the praise and the best list, and believe me, I have a lot to praise. It's 1964, how could I not? But first, we're gonna take out the trash. Kinda. To be quite honest, with how incredibly strong this year end is, I don't think I could effectively make a top 10 worst of the year without getting into some really nitpicky territory. And I don't like forcing that. It's not fun for me, and I don't think y'all would enjoy it as much either. So I'm just gonna run through a selection of songs that I think are worth noting for their uniquely clumsy, outdated, even goofy qualities. The CHR83 approach, basically. Some of these songs I even like pretty well, so keep that in mind before you rush to the comments to complain. But you should still leave me a comment anyway. What do you think about this year? What are some of your least favorite songs, etc.? And go ahead and subscribe while you're at it. Been feeling really sentimental about the 2019 era of my channel lately, and I want to recapture some of its magic by covering some older pop hits once again. I love that stuff a lot. But let's close out this preamble now and get to this first song on the list. One that I'm not particularly proud of including here.
Wishing and hoping and thinking and praying, planning.
Alright, let's get one thing nice and sparkling clear. I feel like a lot of these videos on these older years tend to attract a certain kind of audience, so I want to set my boundaries right off the bat. This is a queer-friendly space. We believe in trans rights and wrongs, and I myself am a they/it heathen. And I will accept no other pronouns, thank you very much. And I only bring this up because here is Dusty Springfield, gay queen extraordinaire. Indeed, she never reported to have ever been in a relationship with a man, but also engaged in multiple relationships with women throughout her life. As a lifelong lover of queer history, I'm always going to take the opportunity to highlight the individuals who represented us in such full and beautiful light, to show that we've always been around, loving who we want, and living gloriously in the face of a world that wants us invisible. Which is such a shame that she's helming such an aggressively heterosexual song.
All you gotta do is hold him and kiss him and love him and show him that you care.
Now, again, I really want to stress, I like this song. I even kind of love it. There's just no denying the clearness and confidence in her voice. She was always great, and this is just another example of this. It's also a Hal David and Burt Bacharach production, which is another big plus. I absolutely love the textures of the percussion, given body by the subtle guitars, swooning backup singers, and occasional horn interludes. And the part where it slips into double time,
You gotta show him that you care just for him.
absolutely infectious. This is absolute 60s gold, that's for certain. So why is it here then? Well, this message is a bit outdated, ain't it?
So if you're thinking of having true love,
The TLDR is, why keep sitting and praying for the right man to come around when you can just stomp right over and take him for yourself? Which isn't a terrible message per se. I'm definitely a fan of action over passivity in most of life situations. It's just the framing of it all, man.
do the things he likes to do. Wear your hair just for him.
I've heard plenty of boy crazy love songs in my days, but few as aggressive in its complacency as this one. Woman can have no free will or opinion. Woman can only do things that make man happy. You can just feel the heteronormity all over this one, like a big wet blanket.
You won't get in, thinking and a playing, wishing and a hoping.
I love David and Bacharach for certain, but boy is it apparent that men wrote this song for a woman to sing. I hate having to think about these things, especially for a song that sounds as lovely as this one, but sadly, I have no choice. Complain about my criticism all you want, just make sure you're gendering me correctly in the process. Please and thank you.
And after you do, you will be his.
Okay, but let's actually get to the worst list fodder you're looking for.
Every time you kiss me, I'm still not certain that you love me.
So this here is Elvis Presley. You might have heard of him. This song is called Suspicion, and it comes from his 7th studio album Potluck. Not one of his better known albums, and as such, this isn't really one of his better known songs. Still, it's not unpleasant. I dig the interplay between the piano and harpsichord, I think that's what it is. And having the tune slow its tempo at the chorus for emotional appeal is kind of a cool trick.
Suspicion keeps us apart. Suspicion, why torture me?
Anyway, this song is actually best known for a cover version done not 2 years later. This shuffling around and re-recording pre-existing songs happened a lot back in the day. It was just a thing. But now we have the song in the hands of a newcomer by the name of Terry Stafford, and
Every time you kiss me, I'm still not certain that you love me. Every time you hold me.
it's the same song, virtually unchanged. And as you probably heard, dude sounds an awful lot like Elvis, don't he? Okay, well, there are differences, but less appealing differences, in my opinion. We have this jaunty horn thrown in the midst of the tune, replacing the piano of the original, but it sounds awfully stiff and even a bit off-tune at points. Also, what the hell is up with these backing vocals?
Why should our romance just keep on causing me such sorrow?
I guess it's kind of a different mood, but if somebody told me that they were pulled in for last-minute work after an all-night rager, after which they were still incredibly hungover and nauseous from the night before, I probably wouldn't question it, yeah.
Suspicion,
For it's my heart
suspicion.
keeps us apart.
The song itself also isn't quite my cup of tea either. As the title suggests, it's about a guy who doubts the intentions of his lover, despite them doing practically everything to prove to him that they are, in fact, loving and committed. Still, he continues to have his doubts, and it continues to eat him up inside. Which is a valid anxiety. Some people just seem too good to be true, and we all have our own internal battles and such. But the final verse is where it loses me.
Darling, if you love me, I beg you wait a little longer.
Yeah, this kind of falls in line with the type of songs I hate, i.e. the just break up already songs. The ones that want us to side with the possibility of the couple working through their differences and coming out the other side prosperous. Here, all I really want is for the other party to stop wasting their time and energy on someone who doesn't seem to want to give the same back. Just be patient. It can only really take you so far, dude. No one is obligated to meet you halfway. I wouldn't normally be so hyper-focused on this theme, but like, it's not like the music itself gives me much to be distracted with. I don't know, this has always felt like an aggravating slog of a song for me. It's easily forgettable and only really here out of a technicality anyway, so whatever. Oh, now here's a big one.
Well, where, oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me.
So I want to make it clear right off the bat that my hangups with this particular song are less about the song itself and more what it represents. See, in the late 50s and early 60s, there was this strange trend of teen tragedy songs. Those that give us a melodramatic scenario, usually one involving young star-crossed lovers, that results in death, usually after an accident. I've never really seen the appeal of much of them. Indulging in such stark tragedy told through a filter of pop format just isn't my style. As such, well, we have one of the big ones here.
We were out on a date in my daddy's car. We hadn't driven very far.
This song is pretty easy to sum up. The central couple are out for a casual drive when they suddenly get in a terrible accident. While lying in the wreckage, the two of them embrace one last time before she eventually passes away. Really bleak stuff, and I just can't stand it.
Well, where, oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me.
I suppose I can see how this might be a comforting listen to those who have lost a loved one, especially in that chorus, which turns the dire scenario around to optimism, with the belief that the speaker may one day be reunited with his lover when his own day comes. Doesn't apply to me though. I don't know. I can't help but view this as deathsploitation for the sake of it, and that never sat right with me. And yet, the elephant in the room with this one is that this isn't the version of the song that most people know. Yeah, Pearl Jam inexplicably covered the song at the height of their fame, and it just as inexplicably became their biggest pop hit. I still hear it on the radio sometimes to this day. The tradition lives on, I guess. Anyway, I don't necessarily enjoy this version either. It presents the story just as bluntly as the original. It's an extremely faithful cover. But I think what this version gets right is that it sounds tragic. The slower tempo, the mournful guitars, Eddie Vedder's aching vocals. Granted, I can't take it too seriously, but the mood is there. And certainly a step up from J. Frank Wilson's original, which presents this tale of immense loss with all the emotional resonance of a toothpaste commercial.
I held her close, I kissed her our last kiss, I found a love.
It's just too chipper for its own good, and I simply can't believe a word he says here. 1964 also gave us Leader of the Pack, which is a masterpiece in this very genre. The way that the Shangri-Las cycle between playful camp and terrible tragedy is an absolute sight to behold. I love it so. And yet, none of that grace or whimsy can be found in Last Kiss. It's so straight-laced and stuffy, while also devoid of anything resembling realistic grief. Just absolutely not for me in so many perceivable ways. So, not to make another segment where I compare the song in question to something else entirely, but that's exactly what I'm about to do.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl.
So this is El Paso by Marty Robbins, a song I absolutely adore. It's pretty much the perfect blending of that thick, polished country sound with traditional Tejano tones and rhythms, each part emphasizing the strengths of the other. And it's all strung along with some impeccably gorgeous melodies, as well as an emotionally gripping tale of a man who falls in love with a Mexican woman, only to end up on the wrong side of a shooting match and soon on the run. This tale does end tragically, but remains a bona fide staple in its genre for its tense, gripping, yet beautiful performance by all involved. Now, let's see another take on this narrative.
In a little cafe, just the other side of the border.
This here is Jay and the Americans, one of the few holdovers from the early 60s teen idol era that found notable success in this new generation of movers and shakers in pop music. They previously had success with She Cried, a weepy ballad which I always found a bit dour personally. Luckily with this next hit though, they teamed with songwriters Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, most known for the work they had done with the Monkees, a pretty good transition away from the teenage melodrama of times past and into more mature territory that nonetheless still carries over all their boyish charm. And yeah, it worked. This was a hit.
And I heard her say, come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man, so big and so strong.
Pretty much the only thing anyone really remembers about this song is that chorus, which, yeah, for good reason. It's catchy and digestibly poppy, but also with a nice Latin swing that really makes it stick to the brain. Generally speaking, the sound of the song is nice. Gotta love those horns, which bring a really cool jazziness to the tune. But the tune itself sounds a bit familiar, don't it?
Come a little bit closer, you're my kind of man, so big and so strong.
Yeah, this is more or less an interpolation of La Bamba. Not exactly, but like, it sure as hell really wants to be. But as you probably predicted, yeah, it's the storytelling here I don't love.
He was sitting there giving me looks that made my mouth water.
I mean, it's nothing too complex. Man falls in love with a Mexican girl who turns out to also be going steady with bad man Jose. Their paths are crossed, calamity ensues, and eventually our narrator escapes. All while this woman, who's never given a name by the way, sings this flirty refrain his way. Now, I understand that this was intended for a completely different audience than El Paso, but it's also clear that the love story at the center of El Paso is only a fraction of its appeal. The emotional complexity and rich, tense narrative building is another big part of it, and the song is all the better for it. This song, however, is rather simple as far as any of that goes. It's just a quick and breezy pop tune with a similar tail thrown in the center. That's all well and good, but it's tough for me to care about any of it, especially when it sounds like Jay and the Americans are only there to simply and mindlessly fill in the space before the chorus. And yeah, I'll just say, don't really love how this bit lies completely on the stereotypes of Mexican men being violent and easily provoked, and Mexican women being haughty, seductive, and duplicitous.
Then I heard Jose say, man, you know you're in trouble plenty.
Do I sense a put-on accent there? Kinda cringe, bro. And before you leave me a disparaging comment, I'm not saying this song should be any different. I'm just saying I don't like how it is currently. I think that's allowed. No shade to anyone who loves this song for sentimental reasons, or any reason really. It's just no Marty Robbins is all. They probably should have stuck with their sad love songs for teenagers.
It's alright.
It's alright.
I'm gonna wake you up early 'cause I'm gonna take a ride with you.
Since the Beach Boys sprung into popularity in '62 and became even huger in '63, it should come as no surprise that by 1964, we'd see quite a few copycats around these parts. Likely the most prominent of these was Jan and Dean, who attained 2 year-end hits in '64 that would have certainly been mistakenly attributed to the boys if you were none the wiser. But we also had a number of smaller groups that achieved only brief bursts of infamy in this time, and I want to briefly skim over a couple. First, Little Honda by the Hondells. Creative name for sure.
We're going down to the Honda shop, I'll tell you what we're gonna do.
This group was made up of a collection of session musicians who were essentially manufactured monkey style in order to capitalize off the popularity of the Honda motorbike, a vehicle that was competing with the budding car culture of the time. With this motorbike, Honda opted for a youthful, more family-friendly image as a sort of pushback against the trope of motorcyclists as dirty, delinquent rebels, and the Hondells were part of the formula to make this happen.
It's more fun than a barrel of monkeys, that two-wheel bike.
Thus, Little Honda was a hit, a song that cruises along some pretty basic doo-wop and surf pop tunage in order to craft a simple and innocent pop song, wherein the speaker takes his pretty little girlfriend out for a ride in his Honda. Except, well, I'm convinced that this song is of a more sexual nature.
I'll wake you up early 'cause I'm gonna take a ride with you.
Wake you up early, take you for a ride. Okay, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. Except, no, how else do you explain this chorus?
First gear, it's alright. Second gear, a lean right. Third gear, hang on tight.
Shifting through all the different gears while the backup singers softly chant faster, faster? Come on. I know all about the long-standing traditions of pop music slyly sneaking in innuendo to get past the censors. I'm not dense.
It's not a big motorcycle, just a groovy little motorbike.
Aw, don't be so hard on yourself, man. It's not the size that counts, it's what you do with it. But I think now's about the time I pull the wool away from your eyes, because guess who wrote this song? Surprise! Turns out this was a Beach Boys song the entire time. The Hondells may have been totally manufactured, but their one and only hit was actually a Beach Boys cover, totally cleaned and sterilized for its most commercial purposes. I knew something was up though. I could see it from a mile away. In any case though, for a sex song cleverly disguised as a perfectly chaste homage to Riding the Open Roads, one could do a whole lot worse.
Hey, little cobra, don't you know you're gonna shut 'em down?
Little Cobra? You don't say. Alright, I'll try to be a little mature here. So the Ripcords were another one of these surf rock groups, although they're a significantly less interesting case than the last one. Pretty much just a couple of kids who decided to form a duo, ending up meeting with producer Terry Melcher and Beach Boys member Bruce Johnston, thereby making this a quartet. Yeah, as it turns out, the Beach Boys were involved all the way down. Which, I guess it makes sense to involve the top hitmakers of the scene if you want to try your hand out on such a fresh and invigorating sound.
I took my Cobra down to the track, hitched to the back of my Cadillac.
Although, this isn't as fresh as I would like, personally. For one, it's very obviously a standard Beach Boys copy. Specifically, it's very much a Surf and Safari rip. Pardon the pun. Still, there's a lot to be desired here. These melodies are rather limp, the singing a bit flat, and it all rides on the basest line of passability. Good for filling the air during a weekend beach trip, but not for much else. But there's just one thing about it. One little thing. Bro, I don't appreciate that soft whispering into my eardrum. It's too sensual for a song about driving in that titular hot rod. I think they forgot which of these two songs was supposed to be the sex song. I don't think I should be able to envision the smell of their breath, but I digress. That's really the one unique thing it's got going for it, truthfully. Sure, it's a fun tune, but fun in a way that only really matters in the very moment you're listening to it, cause you sure as hell are gonna forget about it as soon as it's over. And when you've got a plethora of Beach Boys hits at your disposal, none of which have some dude uncomfortably sighing into your eardrums, might as well give this one a pass, yeah. And speaking of being uncomfortable...
Oh no, don't let the rain come down. Oh no, don't let the rain come down.
Alright, so I want to make it clear that I'm not one to completely dismiss the softer, more traditional pop music that became popular in the pre-Beatles 60s. I know a lot of people my age aren't so into the Ricky Nelsons and Connie Francises and Everly Brothers of the time, but I tend to think I have quite the open mind with the oldies. All three of the artists I mentioned, as well as some of their contemporaries, have some genuinely great tunes in them. Just as I'm a forever defender of sophistopop and adult contemporary, I also recognize the place that some of this softer music has in our culture. Just because I can't dance to it doesn't mean it can't be nice and meaningful in its own way, and I really respect a lot of it. With that said, boy is this some awfully trite material.
Don't let the rain come down. My roof's got a hole in it and I might drown.
Now, if you haven't heard of Serendipity Singers before, well, that's not surprising. They're a 9-part folk group that came onto the scene right in the midst of Beatlemania, when this kind of traditional folk was really struggling to remain relevant. But still, not everybody jumped so quickly on board with the changing of tides, so an audience for the sound remained. But let me tell ya, if there ever was a sound of struggling to remain relevant, this here is it.
There was a crooked man and he had a crooked smile. Had a crooked sixpence and he walked a crooked mile.
Sure, the harmonizing is nice enough, the calypso instrumentation is pleasant. At the same time though, I don't know man, when I listen to this, I feel like I'm being recruited into a cult. There's just something so unnaturally wholesome and chaste about the song that I just don't like. It's like that scene in John Waters' Crybaby, with that pasty doo-wop group performing their rendition of Shaboom with every ounce of life and soul absolutely drained away. And yeah, similar to how we got these anglicized versions of doo-wop in the wake of the genre's success, so did we have a number of white musicians trying their hand at calypso to varying degrees of success.
Well, this crooked little man and his crooked little smile took his crooked sixpence and he walked a crooked mile.
Like the John Waters parody, it carries that similar sort of contrived wholesomeness that seems to be forcibly jamming itself into my ears, and I hate it. And it doesn't help that the song is literally derived from a children's nursery rhyme. A crooked little man in a crooked little house, etc., etc., which only furthers the level of absolute inanity here. If your song is 1 degree separated from Baby Shark, you know you're doing something wrong. And yeah, I'm sure there are people watching this who might have some fond memories connected to this one. Absolutely not trying to take this away from you. It's just that this is the kind of music I like. So yeah, this wasn't really gonna do it for me. Pretty glad that the remainder of the 60s would give us some much stronger examples of how to make popular folk music, because this ain't cutting it.
Little children, you better not tell on me.
What the hell?
And if you're good, I'll give you candy and a quarter. If you're quiet, like you ought to be.
Yeah, alright. Never let anyone tell you that the British invasion could do no wrong. But let's ease the brakes just a little bit. Just like his Fab Four contemporaries, Billy J. Kramer originated from Liverpool, England, him being amongst the budding Mersey beat scene around this time. And like the Beatles, Kramer was managed by one Brian Epstein, and once the band made their crossover into the States, he, with assistance from Manchester-based backing group The Dakotas, capitalized off the popularity by recording numerous Lennon-McCartney compositions to varying levels of success. They had another hit this year called Bad to Me, and I really liked that one.
So the birds in the sky won't be sad and lonely, 'cause they know that I've got my one and only.
Yeah, just a nice little slice of pop rock with that playful sing-along melody that is so very Beatles-esque indeed. And yet, despite the Lennon-McCartney magic that they were working with, it's only upon departing from these works into something more original do we get their biggest hit. Somehow.
I'm asking you, you can't fool me, 'cause I'm gonna know if you hide.
I mean, briefly ignoring the contents for just a moment, this is just not as appealing as a song. That plink of a melody is so blocky and clumsy, and the tune itself moves slower than molasses. There have been scientific studies to get down to the reasons why Beatles tunes are so damn catchy. Meanwhile, this one is just utterly dull and charmless from top to bottom.
I'm gonna treat you to a movie. Stop your giggling.
Alright, but let's actually get some clarification on this song's story. As creepy as the song comes off in its first couple verses, it's soon revealed the reasoning why this grown man wants these children to stay mum. It's because they caught him making out with their sister, and he's afraid that they're gonna snitch on them.
You saw me kissing your sister. You saw me holding her hand.
Kinda weird to place the onus of secrecy on literal kids, but whatever, dude.
But if you snitch to your mother, your father won't understand.
And yet, now it's got me wondering, how old is this girl supposed to be? I mean, certainly young enough that she'd want to keep her parents from finding out she's going steady with someone. Or maybe it's the fact that she's hooking up with an older man that she's keeping under wraps. Yeah, the longer I think about this, the ickier it gets. I never said this, but these last three songs are probably my three worst of the year. This one is number 2, one of the very worst. Not only does it pose a rather troubling narrative at its center, but it does so in this really slow reveal that tricks the listener into thinking something even more heinous is going on. Not that the material isn't heinous enough already, and the fact that we don't even have a catchy melody or good music to distract us from all that, that just makes this an absolute stain on such an unconventionally great year as 1964, and it deserves to be absolutely forgotten. Well, that one's done with. And now, in lieu of a proper dishonorable mention segment, let's go over a few songs from this year that one would assume I dislike, but I don't. Yeah, based on everything I said about teen tragedy songs, one would think that this would be on the SHIT list for me, but not really. I think what helps a lot is that this song genuinely sounds very good. The instrumentals are nice and layered with some additional non-musical elements that really paint this picture of a drag race gone wrong.
Well, the last thing I remember, Doc, I started to swerve, and then I saw the jag slide into the curve.
It's pretty dark, actually, even scary, almost like it's picking out the not-so-fun parts of this rebellious teen culture and blasting it for all to see. And if you think that the falsetto harmonies and surf pop structures sound an awful lot like a Beach Boys song, well, check out who wrote it. Like I said, those boys were everywhere. Altogether, I think it's one of those rare teen tragedy songs that breaches past the mere exploitative qualities of it all, and it's well worth a listen. Oh boy, that sure is some falsetto, huh? Yeah, it is a little obnoxious, and the plinky piano rhythm settling over those two repetitive chords and not much else can be a little grating. But I don't know, there always comes a point where my toes started tapping and the groove just kind of settled into my bones, and I accept it. It's just too innocent of a song to hate. Also, this song is about how much a guy loves his girlfriend because of her impeccable toast-making skills. We could all only be so lucky.
People who need people.
Yeah, no way was I going to put Queen Babs on the worst list. Helps that I also really like Funny Girl and the usage of the song in that film. Y'all can't forget I'm gay as hell. Anyway, this is just a really lovely ballad, and the way that Barbara sings it is so tender yet powerful. A musical theater standard in the most shining sense of the term.
I love you. There's nothing to hide.
This song has come to represent one of the final remnants of the early 60s, that sliver of time when teen idols reigned supreme and Beatlemania hadn't yet fully taken effect. In fact, this was a final #1 hit before it was replaced by I Wanna Hold Your Hand, which is poetry in its own regard. Bobby Vinton is divisive these days, but I've always had a particular affection for his light, boyish vocals, and this is another example of this. I also love the "it's not for me to say" twinkles in the backdrop.
I love you. I will till the end.
Yet another homage to that era of pop music's past, slowly trickling away.
Everybody loves somebody sometime.
Here's kind of a similar situation of the old guard butting heads with the new scene. As the story goes, Dean Martin, who hadn't had a hit in years and famously hated rock and roll, made a promise to his teenage son that he was going to knock his beloved Beatles off the top of the pop charts. And, well, he did exactly that. With Everybody Loves Somebody replacing A Hard Day's Night at the top, and eventually becoming one of his signature tunes. But did it deserve to? Well, yes. As standards go, this is one of the very best. It's big, cozy, friendly, and awfully endearing. Also one of the very best of Dino's repertoire, if I say so myself. Slaps.
I just moved in my new house today. Moving was hard, but I got...
No, not that Gene Simmons. Anyway, I feel like the novelty of the song has been all but drained away thanks to the decades worth of Halloween comps I've indulged through the years. But it's fine, it's still a damn good romp at the end of things. Doesn't have a ton to it besides its jaunty rhythm and Simmons' recalling of all the wacky incidents occurring upon moving into a supposedly haunted house. There are songs that have worked with this concept in more interesting ways, but regardless, I can't deny the charm of this one at all. A well-worn classic, but deservedly so.
Woman sitting home with a month-old child. Dang me, they ought to take a rope and hang me.
I will take no criticisms of Roger Miller at this time. I actually don't know the general consensus of this guy these days, but I can see his silliness being a bit much for some. Not for me. I absolutely adore how quirky the song sounds, from the twang of these guitars to Miller's absolutely effervescent personality. Just a fun song in general, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this rhyme specifically.
Roses are red, violets are purple, sugar's sweet and so is maple syrup.
Just amazing.
Chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug, make you wanna holler hidey-ho, burns your tummy.
Oh yeah, this is basically the same song as last, and I enjoy it for all the same reasons. 1964 sure was Roger Miller's year. He never had a year-end hit ever again, but this pairing leaves one hell of an impression for sure. Absolutely adore these honky-tonk pianos and Miller's humorous performance across a number of key changes. No lines here hit as hard as Maple Syrup, but it's still a neat, bouncy little drinking song, yeah. So I had a dream the other day that this record was the one I selected to be my very worst hit song of 1964. And I mean, sure, it's a pretty loyal self-cover that's ultimately pretty pointless when the original version of the track exists and is terrific. But it's not bad either, just another perfectly solid surf rock instrumental to throw into the pile. My sleep brain can never be trusted, I've realized. But now, here's the actual worst hit single of 1964. In my opinion, of course.
White on white, lace on satin, blue velvet ribbons on...
So Danny Williams is a pretty talented crooner, born in South Africa but raised in the United Kingdom for most of his life. With his honey-smooth vocal delivery and collection of ballads, he's very much reminiscent of singers like Johnny Mathis and Nat King Cole, and he had quite a few songs that showcase these talents pretty well. He recorded a really lovely rendition of Moon River that was a UK #1 hit in 1961. Not my absolute favorite, but well worth a listen, I think. And once we got the shifting of sounds and scenes as the decade marched along, he didn't compromise to these trends and continued to record for the ongoing traditional pop-loving audiences. White on white, unfortunately, is quite the misstep.
White on white,
lace on satin, my little angel.
For one thing, having listened to a number of simple ballads that demonstrated his knack at soft yet delectable crooning, this one is a mid-tempo, even bouncy style of tune that immediately feels trite and hokey. It's a similar energy to the Serendipity Singer song, just the most chaste and hollow production, the kind that never really sits well in my ears. At the same time though, this also makes sense, considering the content of the song.
I'll be waiting to kiss the bride when her name is new.
For we have yet another song with a story at its center. The story here is of a simple wedding, with a title referring to the white lace and satin of the bride's wedding dress. The jolliness of the track fits pretty well for a while. It seems like he's about to get married to the woman he loves, so he watches her walk down the aisle with tears in his eyes, holding out his hand to her and quietly whispering, "I do." And I'll freely admit that this song already wasn't on my good side. Songs about marriage are not really my cup of tea. It's just a weird, annoying gripe I have. But well, there's gotta be a twist, of course.
'Cause she'll belong to someone else when the organ starts to play.
Bazinga! He's watching her get married off to someone else. Suddenly, the jauntiness doesn't seem quite so jaunty anymore. Now, if you mingle around the same stomping grounds that I do, you'll know that this sounds familiar.
I'll wear my black suit, black tie, early in the back.
Yeah, we had a hit quite a few years ago that tackled a similar topic, Marry Me by Thomas Rhett. I've never been head over heels for this one, but it's a pretty good song, yeah. And I think what makes it good, in spite of its wedding-centric storyline, is that it's actually more of a character study, an examination of its speaker who finds himself at his ex-lover's wedding, dealing with so many conflicted emotions, fighting back his impulse to try to somehow win her back, and ending up accepting the way of things at the very end. And, well, that's what White on White is not.
White on white, lace on satin, blue velvet.
The song ends right when we realize this twist. The fact that she's now fallen in love with someone else is played off as tragedy, and we're meant to be sympathetic to the speaker, and not in the complicated emotions way that Thomas Rhett's song demonstrates. There's no sign that things will get better from this point, that one day he'll move on and perhaps find someone new. It just ends.
I'll be holding back my tears till she's gone away.
It's just a dour, bleak conclusion. This young woman now quote-unquote belongs to someone else, her personhood being fully objectified, and his life is fully over. All this played out to the tune of dramatic strings and pathetic choir backing. But then there's this line, which kinda just passes by us, without explanation.
She has been my only love since she was 13.
Excuse me? When she was 13? And how old were you? Alright, so one of the really jarring aspects about going through these old year ends is seeing just how many hits of the day so openly portray the act of falling in love with or lusting after teenagers, and especially teenage girls.
Sweet little 16, she's got the grown-up blues.
It's just something that was so ridiculously normalized in its day, and makes returning to these songs, even the ones I really like, all that more unsettling. And this song is just another leg to this trend, and yeah, I've seen the explanation that perhaps this is told from a father's perspective on his daughter getting married off, but I don't know if I buy that. 13 is just way too specific of an age. I just can't read this any other way than a young man who fawned over this younger woman for quite a while, and at some point he had to have been a legal adult while she was still a child. Ugh. Add this all to the cumulative snowball of wedding songs being uncomfy as hell, and this particular wedding song sounding really bad, and yeah, this is definitely my worst hit of the year. Which brings me no pleasure, considering that Danny Williams has a very nice voice in spite of it all. I'm just gonna go and listen to his Moon River cover instead, and let's throw in his disco song while we're at it.
Nice and slow.
Yeah, this is fine. This is good. I'll take this. I never really know how to do outros for these things, so thank you all for watching. I plan on doing some more of these retro lists in the future, so look out for those. Best of 1964 is coming soon, so until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.